Winter arrives early in Boston. Eleanor Griffin gazed at the snow falling outside the window as she huddled against the November cold. The small cafe on Maple Street where she worked was an anomaly in this upscale neighborhood. Eleanor wiped the window glass, fogged by steam from the espresso machine, thinking she needed to leave early today. Her son Noah would soon be returning from school. "Eleanor, you can finish up for today. You need to pick up Noah, don't you?" Janet, the owner, smiled kindly. She was very understanding of Eleanor's situation as a single mother. "Thank you, Janet. I really appreciate it." Eleanor expressed her gratitude and quickly removed her apron. Her eyes always carried a hint of fatigue. Life as a single mother raising a 7-year-old son was never easy. Noah's father, David, had suddenly passed away in a car accident just 6 months after their son was born. For 7 years since then, Eleanor had raised her son alone. Though modest, their life together was filled with love. On her way back to her small apartment, Eleanor checked the mailbox. There was one elegant envelope addressed to her. When she opened it, an invitation printed in gold letters on high-quality white paper appeared. "You and Noah Griffin are cordially invited to the wedding of Victoria Griffin and Richard Hamilton." Eleanor couldn't help but sigh. Her sister Victoria was getting married. Victoria, with her beauty and social skills, had become engaged to Richard Hamilton, the son of a local real estate magnate. Eleanor carried the invitation to her apartment, filled with mixed emotions. "Mom." When she opened the door, Noah jumped up from the table where he'd been doing his homework and ran to her. His smile instantly washed away Eleanor's fatigue. "How was your day? Did you have fun at school?" Eleanor asked, embracing her son. "Yes. I got a perfect score on my math test," Noah answered proudly. While preparing dinner, Eleanor thought about the invitation. Since her father William had died of a heart attack 3 years ago, she had been gradually distanced from her mother and sister. Her mother Martha had always doted on her sister and been cold toward Eleanor. Only her father had supported her, and now he was gone too. Eleanor was uncertain whether she should attend the wedding. However, when Noah found the invitation during dinner, everything changed. "Auntie's wedding. I want to go," Noah said, his eyes shining. For him, this was a special event. Eleanor smiled, but inside she felt anxious. How would her mother and sister treat her and Noah? At recent family gatherings, they had always been left out. That night, after Noah had gone to bed, Eleanor sat on the small living room sofa and opened an old photo album. Looking at photos of memories with her father, she quietly shed tears. William Griffin may have appeared to be a stern real estate company executive on the outside, but he was always kind to Eleanor and respected her decisions. Since the day he died, Eleanor felt as if her place within the family had completely disappeared. The next morning, Eleanor called her sister. "Victoria, thank you for the invitation. We'll be coming." On the other end of the line, Victoria responded with a slightly surprised voice. "Oh, you're coming. How nice. Mother will be pleased too." Sensing the insincerity in those words, Eleanor continued the conversation. "Noah is looking forward to it. It is his aunt's wedding, after all." "Yes, of course. But, can you and your son come in proper attire? Richard's family members are all high society people." Those words hurt Eleanor's heart, but she answered calmly. "Don't worry. We won't embarrass you." After ending the call, Eleanor gazed at the snowy landscape outside the window. She resolved to attend this wedding for Noah's sake and for her late father. On the wedding day, the 5-star Regent Plaza Hotel in downtown Boston was adorned with elegant decorations. White roses and golden ribbons were gracefully arranged from the entrance to the main hall, and a crimson carpet was laid over the marble floor. Eleanor and Noah stepped out of the taxi and entered the hotel with nervous expressions. Eleanor had dipped into her savings to buy a modest navy blue dress for herself and a neat suit for Noah. Even so, compared to the lavish attire of the guests gathered in the lobby, the two of them clearly looked plain. The women were dressed in designer brand dresses, and the men were dressed in high-end tailored tuxedos. "Mom, everyone is so sparkly," Noah said in a small voice. His eyes reflected curiosity and a little fear. "Yes, they are. But it's okay. We were invited here, so we should hold our heads high." Eleanor gently put her arm around her son's shoulders. When they entered the ceremony venue, they were guided to seats at the back. In the church-like hall adorned with luxurious decorations, Victoria and Richard's wedding was conducted in a sacred atmosphere. The bride, dressed in a pure white wedding gown, shone like a princess from a fairy tale. After the ceremony, the guests moved to the grand ballroom on the top floor of the hotel. There, a vast space that could easily accommodate 300 guests was decorated in champagne gold. The light pouring down from the giant chandeliers on the ceiling made it seem like a dream world. Eleanor and Noah were guided to a small table at the edge. A card labeled "Griffin Family Relatives" was placed on the table, but Martha, Eleanor's mother, was not there. She was seated at the head table. As the reception began, luxurious dishes were served one after another. Noah's eyes sparkled as he tried the high-end cuisine he had never seen before. Though tense, Eleanor felt relieved seeing her son enjoying himself. Several times, she caught her mother's gaze, but Martha quickly looked away. After the meal and the cutting of the wedding cake, the master of ceremonies stood up. "Now, from the bride and groom, we have a special entertainment for all our guests." Music began to play, and the lights in the venue dimmed. Suddenly, a spotlight illuminated the table where Eleanor and Noah were sitting. They looked up in surprise. Victoria, gracefully wearing her pure white dress, approached from the central stage with a microphone in hand. There was a full smile on her face. However, Eleanor sensed something lurking behind that smile. "Everyone, thank you so much for coming to my special day," Victoria said in a sweet voice. "But there's one more special thing today. Please look. This is my sister, Eleanor, and her son, Noah." All eyes in the venue turned to Eleanor and Noah. Noah shrank in embarrassment and tightly held Eleanor's hand. "As you can see, my sister is a single mother. And her son, my cute nephew. They live in a somewhat different world from us." Victoria's words were met with giggles from the venue. Eleanor sat with a frozen expression. She could predict what was about to happen. "So today, I'd like to hold a special charity auction," Victoria declared loudly. "This single mother and her poor son as a set. Would anyone like to buy them?" The venue erupted in laughter. People dressed in luxury brands were laughing as if watching a circus sideshow. Tears began to well up in Noah's eyes. "Mom." He looked up at Eleanor with a trembling voice. Eleanor tried to stand up, but she froze at what happened next. Martha stood up and took the microphone from Victoria. "Let me add something. This auction can start at $0, Martha said with a laugh. "Because I don't think they have any value." Again, the venue filled with laughter. Eleanor's chest felt like it would burst with anger and humiliation. Noah was now crying audibly. Seeing his small shoulders trembling, Eleanor came to her senses. "Let's go, Noah," she said quietly, and took her son's hand to stand up. But at that moment, a quiet yet powerful voice echoed from the back of the venue. $1 million. The venue fell silent. All eyes turned to the source of the voice. Standing there was a gentleman with a calm demeanor, with gray-tinged black hair and a well-maintained suit. His blue eyes were filled with calmness and dignity. "I'll buy this lady and her son for $1 million, the man said again. Victoria forced a smile and said, "Well, someone with a sense of humor." "This is not a joke," the man said quietly and walked toward the center of the venue. "I am James Morrison, William Griffin's attorney." Eleanor gasped. Her father's attorney. She hardly knew any of her father's business associates, but she had heard this man's name. James walked to the center of the venue and looked toward Eleanor and Noah. A small smile played on his lips. Then he slowly shifted his gaze and coldly looked at Victoria and Martha. "Shall we continue this auction?" he said quietly but with a dignified voice. "Or shall we move on to the time to speak the truth?" At James Morrison's words, the grand ballroom was enveloped in complete silence. Only the light from the chandeliers illuminated his composed face. The groom, Richard, looked at his fiancée Victoria with a puzzled expression, and his father's parents exchanged worried glances. "Before I speak, let me first apologize," James turned back to Eleanor. "Ms. Eleanor, Noah. I deeply apologize for having to convey the truth in this manner today. However, this was the wish of the late William Griffin." Eleanor held her son close, staring at James with an expression mixing agitation and confusion. Noah had stopped crying, but his small body was still trembling. "Stop this nonsense." Martha raised her voice. Her face was contorted with anger. "Who are you? My husband couldn't have had an attorney. All his legal matters were handled by Carter and Smith." James took an envelope from his suit's inner pocket with a gentle smile. "That's correct, Martha. However, about 10 years ago, William began consulting me for personal matters, especially regarding his true will." "That's a lie," Victoria shouted. "Father's will has already been executed. Everything was handled legally." James slowly opened the envelope and took out a notarized document. "Yes, the apparent will was indeed executed. But this is the real, legally valid final will. William, for special reasons, had prepared 2 wills." He held up the document and signaled toward the screen in the venue. The contents of the document were then displayed on the screen. Under the heading, "William Griffin's Final Will and Testament," dated April 15, 2019, detailed clauses were written. The late William Griffin clearly expressed his intention to bequeath 85% of all his assets, all shares of Griffin real estate, and personal property to be equally divided between Eleanor Griffin and his grandson Noah Griffin. A murmur arose from the venue. Martha and Victoria turned pale and looked at each other. Richard's father grabbed his son's arm and whispered something in his ear. James continued, "The remaining 15% is left as living security for Martha Griffin, but she has no further rights. The management rights of Griffin Real Estate are completely transferred to Eleanor." He took out the next document. "And this is a record showing the flow of assets over the past 3 years. It includes evidence of illegal fund transfers made by Martha and Victoria." The screen displayed a complex array of numbers and bank transaction records. James continued his explanation impassively. Before William died of a heart attack, he was concerned about his health condition. And he worried about what might happen after his death. Especially, that Eleanor and Noah might be treated unfairly. Tears welled up in Eleanor's eyes. She hadn't known her late father had been so worried about her and had made such meticulous plans. She remembered the warm gaze she felt every time she looked at her father's picture. "William gave me instructions, after his death, to monitor Martha and Victoria's actions for 3 years and collect evidence. And to reveal the truth at the appropriate time, James said. He was proud that Eleanor was independent. That's why he wanted to see her living by her own strength. But at the same time, he also wanted to ensure that the inheritance she rightfully deserved would certainly reach her hands. Martha stood up, trembling with rage. This is complete nonsense. I was William's wife. I am the one who has the right to inherit his company's shares. Legally, that's not correct, James replied calmly. This will is legally valid and has already been submitted to the court. In fact, a judge is present here today. He nodded to a stern-faced man sitting in a corner of the venue. The man nodded slightly. This is complete fraud. Victoria shouted. We've done nothing wrong. James took out the last envelope. Then, shall we hear William's own words? He took a letter from the envelope and began to read quietly. Dear Eleanor and Noah. If you're reading this letter, it means James has acted according to my instructions. And probably, you are confused right now. First, I'm sorry. I want to apologize for not revealing the truth to you for these 3 years. But there's a reason for this. I wanted to confirm your strength and ability to raise Noah. And I wanted to expose Martha and Victoria's true nature to the world. They have been manipulating me for years, trying to use the company's assets for themselves. When my health deteriorated, they had already made their next plan. To exclude you from the company and cut you off from the inheritance. But you are my true successor. Your honesty, strength, and above all, kindness. These are the most important qualities in business too. Noah is growing up to be a wonderful child. It's all thanks to your love and dedication. Griffin Real Estate is yours, Eleanor. And in the future, it will be Noah's. No matter what your mother and sister try to do, this will is legally valid. Trust James. He is my most trusted friend and will protect you. Finally, one more thing. I'm always proud of you, Eleanor. And Noah, Grandpa is always watching over you. With love, Dad. When James finished reading, the venue was enveloped in complete silence. Tears were streaming down Eleanor's cheeks. Noah was looking up at his mother with a curious face. Mom, did Grandpa remember me? He asked in a small voice. Eleanor answered while hugging her son, yes, of course. Grandpa always loved you. The blood had completely drained from Martha and Victoria's faces. Richard's father stood up and said in an angry voice. What is this? I was about to have my son marry into a family of fraudsters. Richard stared at Victoria with a stunned expression. His eyes reflected sadness and anger of betrayal. James approached Eleanor's seat and said quietly, Ms. Eleanor, Noah, let's leave this place. All legal procedures are already in progress. There's still much you need to know. Eleanor stood up and took Noah's hand. She surveyed the venue with a quiet dignity. The figures of her mother and sister no longer registered in her eyes. What passed through her heart was gratitude toward her father and a determination for the new life about to begin. James's black sedan quietly drove away from the back entrance of the Regent Plaza. Sitting in the passenger seat, Eleanor gazed at the city lights outside the window while putting a coat over Noah, who had fallen fast asleep in the back seat. Various emotions were swirling in her heart. Love for her father, anger and sadness toward her mother and sister, and above all, the shock that everything had been a lie. You must be tired, James spoke quietly. I've booked a hotel for tonight. The legal procedures will begin in earnest tomorrow, so please rest well. Eleanor took a deep breath before asking, why didn't he tell me anything? James thought for a moment before answering, William wanted to protect you. He had seen through Martha and Victoria's schemes but avoided direct confrontation. When his health deteriorated, he anticipated what they would do. But why 3 years? That was William's plan. He wished for you to stand on your own feet. And he was waiting for Martha and Victoria to hang themselves by their own actions. James continued with his gaze fixed on the road. He knew you would raise Noah admirably. And he also knew you had the qualities to take over the company. Eleanor quietly wiped away her tears. I never knew Father believed in me so much. He was always proud of you. He often told me, Eleanor is strong. No matter what happens, she can stand up. The next morning, Eleanor visited James's office with Noah. Various legal documents were already prepared there. Court orders, temporary injunctions, asset freezing documents. James had prepared everything. William's true will has already been submitted to the court and authenticated, he explained. The judge who was at the venue last night has also signed. Martha and Victoria's assets are frozen, and all illegal fund transfers they made are legally nullified. What happens now? Eleanor asked. Noah was in the adjacent room, having a book read to him by James's secretary. First, the management rights of Griffin Real Estate will be transferred to you. All company accounts will also be placed under your authority. We will demand the return of all company funds that Martha and Victoria used. Eleanor held her head in her hands. Can I really manage such a large company? James smiled. You majored in business administration, didn't you? William knew everything. He knew you had excellent grades in business school. But practical experience. There are already excellent staff. And I will also support you. William has left plans for that too. Over the next few weeks, Eleanor's life changed dramatically. Legal battles began, but the evidence James had prepared was overwhelming. Martha and Victoria lost all their property and were ordered to return the company funds they had misused. The engagement with Richard was also broken off, and Victoria completely disappeared from high society. So did Martha. They were forced to move to the suburbs of Boston and live quietly. Noah transferred to a new school. Eleanor began going to the company every day as the CEO of Griffin Real Estate. Although there was confusion at first, her management skills gradually came to be recognized within the company. You are William's daughter. You've inherited his insight and kindness. When one of the veteran executives remarked this, Eleanor quietly smiled. About 3 months after taking over her father's company, Eleanor invited James to her home. They had begun to talk not only about work but also about each other's lives. There's still something you're not telling me, isn't there? Eleanor asked while pouring wine. Noah had already gone to sleep. James thought for a moment before answering. William first contacted me 10 years ago. From around that time, he had been suspicious of Martha and Victoria's actions. Father planned everything to protect me. Yes. He wanted to protect your and Noah's future, James quietly continued. He made me make one last promise. Watch over Eleanor and Noah. Eleanor smiled. You are keeping that promise. From that day on, Eleanor's life became even more fulfilling. She announced a new vision for Griffin Real Estate. It was about environmentally friendly housing development and a housing project to support single parents. I want to continue my father's will and lead this company in a new direction, she declared at the board meeting. We will become a company that contributes to society ourselves. Her proposal was unanimously approved. Eleanor also established the William Griffin Foundation, which specialized in supporting single parents. Noah also became a mascot-like figure for the foundation and began actively participating in events. Mom, I want to help people in trouble too, just like Grandpa, Noah said one day. Eleanor hugged her son and answered, "You certainly can." The relationship with James also deepened. He was no longer just a legal advisor but became a good confidant for Eleanor and an important presence for Noah. James began taking Noah to baseball games on weekends and visiting the Science Museum together. The day Eleanor first entered her father's president's office, she picked up her father's picture and quietly spoke to it. "Thank you, Dad. I'll do my best." Outside the window, spring sunlight was pouring down on the city of Boston. In a small apartment in the suburbs of Boston, Martha Griffin stood by the window, gazing at the rain-soaked street. Her appearance, once adorned with luxury brands, had receded into the shadows, replaced by modest clothing. In the corner of the living room, Victoria was working at her computer. She now works as a clerk at a local real estate company. Her ties with the Hamilton family had been completely severed, and her former high society friends had all left her. "Mother, would you like something to drink?" Victoria looked up and asked. Her expression no longer showed the arrogance of the past. "Thank you, I'll have some tea," Martha answered with a sigh. A year had passed. Their lives had completely changed. From a luxurious mansion to a small apartment, from luxury cars to public transportation. Above all, they had to make a living by their own hands for the first time. That afternoon, they visited Eleanor's office. A plate reading, "Griffin Real Estate, President Eleanor Griffin," shone on the office. "Sorry to keep you waiting," the secretary said. "Please come in." When they opened the door, there was Eleanor facing her desk. She had transformed from a modest woman in a cafe uniform to a confident businesswoman. From the window, the Boston cityscape could be seen in its entirety. "Mother, Victoria," Eleanor stood up to greet them. There was no hostility in her attitude, only a quiet dignity. "It's been a while, Eleanor," Martha said. Her voice was trembling. "I wanted to see you." "Please sit down," Eleanor indicated the sofa. As Martha and Victoria sat down, Eleanor took a seat opposite them. "We came to apologize," Victoria said quietly. "We did terrible things to you and Noah. What happened at the wedding, and about Dad's inheritance. That's in the past," Eleanor replied. "What matters is what we do now." "What do you mean?" Martha asked anxiously. Eleanor took out some documents. "This is a new arrangement I've prepared. It guarantees rent and living expenses. I intend to recognize the 15% rights that Dad originally left for you, Mother." Martha and Victoria looked at the documents with surprised expressions. "Why?" Victoria asked with tears in her eyes. "After what we did to you." Eleanor gazed out the window. "Because that's what Dad wanted. He valued family. And, for Noah, his grandmother and aunt are important." The two were speechless. "But there's one condition," Eleanor continued. "Meet with Noah once a month. He has the right to know his grandmother and aunt." Tears flowed from Martha's eyes. For the first time, she felt genuine love for her grandson. On Christmas night, Eleanor's new home was wrapped in warm light. Around the Christmas tree were Noah's friends, Griffin Real Estate employees, and special invited guests including Martha and Victoria. A toast, James raised his glass. "To a wonderful future." Eleanor smiled as she looked at him. Their relationship was gradually changing from business partners to a special bond. By the snowy window, Noah picked up his grandfather's picture. "Mom, I never met Grandpa, but he must have been a good person, right?" Eleanor hugged her son. "Yes, your grandpa was the best person. And even now, he's watching over us." Outside the window, snow continued to fall quietly on the city of Boston.